All right, there we are, finally. Tech issues, audio issues, and then a lot of swirling, but here we are. A Democrat and a Republican walk into a bar, coming to you live, not from a bar this time, but from the comfort of our homes and our virtual show. I am your Democratic host, Dr. Cindy Banyai.
I am your Republican host, Sean Hartman. How is everyone doing? Everything doing good with you, Cindy? It feels like it's been a bit.
It's hot out. Fascism is raining down around us. So,
Well, we might as well start with that then. So I'm assuming you haven't been too happy with the situation up in DC then.
Oh, no. No. As it turns out, I disagree with calling in the National Guards to sweep the streets in some type of political theater and intimidation. Yeah, don't necessarily agree with that. How about you?
Look, I think public safety is important. I think obviously crime is going down in DC, but it's still pretty high. So anything that can be done to make this street safer within legality and within constitutionality, I'm okay with. We have to remember, of course, DC is technically a territory, not really a state. This is why we get these debates on DC statehood. So there is some level of power that the president has that he wouldn't have in other parts of the country.
Right.
So again, it's always how it's implemented. And I would obviously want to make sure that there isn't any illegal activity from our National Guard or anything like that. But again, it comes down to, it's our capital city. It deserves to be safe. That's it. That's all.
I've gone to DC fairly frequently, like basically almost once a year for the past 15 years. I have been there a lot before that as well, lived there in the late 90s and early 2000s. And
well, that's the late 90s, early 2000s. It's a totally different situation.
But I've been there at least once a year for the past 15 years as well. This is not reality. Like, there is no crime problem. There is no emergency. I was standing outside waiting to see Jimmy Carter earlier this year as he was lying in state. Not a problem.
Well, I wouldn't say this. There's like no crime in the area. There's obviously like crime in the area, and it's one of those urban areas where there is a crime and safety issue. Again, I would have to look at the data exactly, but again,
I have. It's not even in the top 5 in the country for violent crimes. Number 1 is Memphis, by the way, another city that I went to earlier this year. And so, no, this is really people being lied to for political theater is what my opinion is. There's no reason whatsoever to send troops into Washington, D.C. if you're not going to send them into Memphis. And frankly, troops aren't supposed to be sent into either city because that's not what the National Guard or military is for.
Yeah, that part I will agree with you on. Again, this is where I say making sure there's a legal and constitutional aspect to this. Law enforcement really should be the responsibility of the public safety and law enforcement. And again, a lot of people have different experiences there. Some people have felt safe there. Some people have not. I am all for doing what needs to be done in order to keep our streets safe. And, maybe there's a better way to do it than bringing in the National Guard, maybe working with the actual DC Metro Police and improving how they're enforcing the law is probably a better way to do it. But at the end of the day, I'm not against using what tools are available constitutionally to keep our streets safe.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
But the same thing. But the same thing too.
This is not a thing. This is a made-up thing, so Trump can roll in troops and intimidate the shit out of an otherwise democratic city, and I am 100% against it.
All right. So I think that's one of the things we're of course disagreeing on today. But it's been that's definitely been one of the big issues going on right now is
I mean, it's just like what happened in LA too. I mean, they rolled in troops and the National Guards, and then what did they do? They did nothing. They rode around the streets, they rode horses through the park, and then they sat there and slept on the floor of federal buildings, accomplishing exactly nothing except for wasting federal dollars to try and intimidate another.
That I will also agree with you on is if we're over here, we're sending our National Guard people out and they're not doing anything, and they're not actually keeping our streets safe, then you're right. Then you're wasting everyone's time and money, and it is political theater.
Yeah. Yep. That's okay. Good. So we're clear on that.
On the same page if they're doing nothing, but if they're actually out there keeping our streets safe, I'm okay with it. But
I mean, running 20 cops deep, 20 National Guards deep through DuPont Circle, which is one of the safest parts of the city, very low crime rate.
Yeah. Why would that make that? Why would you put troops in an area where you don't need it? That's a waste of time and a waste of money. If you're going to do this,
because it looks cool if you're a fascist.
Well, I wouldn't say it looks like fascism, but I can agree with you that is a political theater situation. All right. If you're going to be using our National Guard troops in order to keep people safe in public safety areas, target the areas that are high crime areas. That's logic and common sense. So,
but if there's not,
then yeah, no, we shouldn't be doing it if there's not. But I don't know. I haven't been to I don't live in DC. I don't know what the experience is like in DC for the average people there. You get these incidents that you hear on the news, but we all know this, whether it's, one crime or another, it's never always indicative of the entire population or what that community is dealing with. So again, we're not in DC. Thankfully, I live here safely in the great city of Cape Coral, where I am safe and free, and thankfully no military as of yet. So, but you never know. Carmine Marcino might get angry at some point and decide to roll in some tanks of his own. But
oh boy, by the way, yes, and we see Cindy Schrader, fan of the show, is in our comments here. Yeah, talking about all the other cities. Yep, Memphis, St. Louis.
Yes. Look, I've heard that data before. You have a lot of red states and red cities that are having high crime areas as well. So we as conservatives can't really be out here, shaking our finger at blue cities and blue states if we have a problem in our own backyard.
Yeah. And by the way, overall, just in terms of like longitudinally as well, crime overall in the United States has been going down since the 90s. All right. It really peaked in the early 90s, and then it went down significantly. And so even though there was a slight spike in the numbers of all different types of crime in the COVID era, those numbers have gone down from there. So we're really talking about like crime was here in the 90s and then dropped significantly and then went a little bit blue. So we are basically safer than at any other point in time in American history.
Oh, for sure. No, I mean, like, this isn't, what we're dealing with in any of these cities, whether it's like DC or New York or other urban areas, is nothing like you've seen in the 80s or 90s, 100%. And that's due to good public safety policies. So,
hey, if you've ever read Freakonomics, do you know what they say it is?
So what do they say it is?
Abortion.
Really?
Yes, because the data coincides with the Roe v. Wade, right? And so what you ended up having is a lot of folks who, that their theory goes is that people who otherwise would, have children and then be more impoverished and more likely to commit crimes because of that poverty, because they were able to choose abortion from 1973 on. That is one of the reasons why they say that the crime rate went down after 1993.
That is a quite a reach to go from, we have no abortions to, because we have no abortions, crime is down.
I don't know. Check it out in Freakonomics. It's the first Freakonomics book.
If you're killing a bunch of potential criminals, I guess that would reduce the crime. And again, when it comes to, and this is something we talked about a few years ago when it comes to the abortion debate, if we're going to be out here as Republicans preventing abortion, we need to make sure there are programs out there so that way these mothers who are now forced to have these children are not doing so in poverty. And I get some pushback sometimes from other conservatives because they're all about that personal responsibility. Well, If it's personal responsibility, that's where the abortion would have come in theory. But what we're actually saying, and we have to be honest about it, as pro-lifers, is we are saying that as a mother, you have to give birth to this child. All right. Whether or not you keep the child or not is an entirely different conversation. But again, if they want to keep the child, because it is still their child, we need to be able to have the programs and welfare in place to take care of that mother and her child. And you are starting to see some shift of it now within the pro-life movement. But I 100% agree. If we're talking about it from an economic and poverty standpoint, we need to make sure those social programs exist as we are out here restricting the termination of pregnancies.
Yeah. Be pro-life after birth, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, I 100% agree with it. This is one of the big criticisms that Democrats have often levied on us to some success, which is the fact that we're not pro-life or pro-birth. We believe that, we want to stop abortions because we do see it as a moral wrong, as a form of murder, but then we're not willing to do what it takes to keep that child alive and that family alive. We're
not in poverty, which is also... See, and it's not just like you're killing potential criminals. What you're doing is you're actually making it more likely that a woman is able to take care of the children that she does have, regardless of her circumstances. Mm-hmm. And therefore, they do not then have additional trauma, and they do not turn to crime and drugs, right? Yeah. So it's not like they were born to be criminals. It's that if you create a circumstance where you can have more family resources go into less children, you are more likely to have lower poverty rates and more successful children. This is demonstrable around the world, too, by the way.
Yes, no, this is 100% true. And that is another thing, especially when we're talking about this DC crime system, and something that even, dare I say, Zoran Mamdani has brought up in his campaign, which is you need to have a more comprehensive approach to dealing with crime. There is the law and order approach, the use of law enforcement in order to keep people safe. But you also have to address some of the root causes of that, whether it's mental health issues or economic poverty, or whatever those situations are, the situations in the home and the family and our education system. All of these factors go into the making of a criminal or the removing of someone from the criminal life. This is why we have like organizations like here in Lee County, like the Boys and Girls Club of America, programs out there that try to reach out very early on to get people out of that pathway of crime. And so there's a lot of things that need to be done there as well in a comprehensive approach that obviously we are not seeing that, at least from President Trump in DC, that I would like to see.
Right. Okay. So this is an exhausting conversation. So let's focus on something else. So what else has been of interest to you over the past couple of weeks, Sean?
Well, I know that Trump's on like round 5,000 on his talks of trying to end the Russia-Ukraine war.
Oh, that's right. So how did the Alaska meeting go, by the way?
Not as good as we hoped.
Shucks, really? You don't say.
It's almost as if Vladimir Putin can't be trusted. No.
No. Who could have ever thought such a thing?
I agree. Look, here's what I want to say. I'm kind of laughing.
Well, shit, he rolled out the red carpet.
And it did
nothing. Walk away with any mineral deals, by the way?
I don't know anything about the mineral deal. From my understanding, there was no ceasefire that was agreed to, which honestly, let's be real. Even if Putin agreed to a ceasefire, we can't trust Putin with any ceasefire. This is what the first meeting with Zelensky was about. And he was saying, which is 100% true, we agreed to all these ceasefires and then Putin breaks those ceasefires. There needs to be, and if you could describe it as progress, which I really wouldn't at this time, but the fact that we're trying to get to an actual final peace. But again, this is going to be so complex and nearly impossible because one, you're going to need to have some level of security guarantees with Ukraine, which is why you have all those European leaders coming to the White House in the next couple of days.
Correct.
But two, and more importantly, at least in my opinion, is there does need to be consequences for Russia for these actions. And the problem is, it's not very clear if we can even have an actual peace agreement without a transfer of territory, which Zelensky does not want to do, and Putin would not probably budge if no territory was exchanged, which is unfair to Ukraine. And we have to admit that. And I think that one of the biggest debates at the core of this issue with Russia-Ukraine is the debate between peace over principle. Like, on principle, we don't want Russia to be rewarded for illegally invading another country and challenging their territorial sovereignty. In my opinion, doing that just emboldens China to take Taiwan, and it just makes the geopolitical situation worse. At the same time, our principles don't matter to the thousands of people who are dying every day in this war.
So we should absolutely capitulate.
I don't think we should.
So well.
Well, that's the thing. I agree. I don't think a full capitulation is we cannot have a full capitulation. We cannot have a situation in which Russia does not have any consequences for their actions. Now, if there's a way that Russia, in theory, purchases territory, like we've seen in some of U.S. wars in history, where we would beat like Mexico to take over the Southwest, and then we'd pay them for it. But it was essentially a conquest as a part of that. But there's still, even beyond that, needs to be consequences for Russia as a deterrent. This is a very complex and almost impossible issue. I think Trump was very foolish to say that he could solve this on day one. This is not something that could be solved on day one. And I've been kind of having a bit of a laugh because he's done everyone else, apparently. He's done Azerbaijan and Armenia. He's done the Congo. He's done India and Pakistan. And it's like he's doing all these side missions trying to get to the big boss. But the problem is you have what is really an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. You have Putin, who won't stop until he receives what he believes he is entitled to, which is the territories of another foreign country. And you have Ukraine, who I think rightfully so is defending the rights of his own national sovereignty for his country as well.
Here's what's interesting about all that you just said, though, is I know that there were conflicts in India, Thailand, Cambodia, and Congo. But I missed the part where Trump fixed it. I mean, he's been claiming it, and people are like, "Oh, we're gonna give him the Nobel Prize."
I don't think Thailand's been fixed yet, but no, he had some other deals.
I haven't seen that part of it. And just like this whole thing where, oh yeah, we're gonna meet Putin, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z and fix it. I think that there is a confusion on the part of the Trump White House, where rhetoric and memes and tweets and posts do not equal diplomacy.
You're absolutely right. Foreign affairs, this is really actually where you and our relationship started, is our love of foreign policy. Right. And the fact is foreign policy is both the most complex of the policy realms, in my opinion, maybe second only to economic policy, but more importantly, it's the policy realm in which most people don't pay attention to. That's why you get a lot of these Republicans on our end who are like, we don't really care what happens to Ukraine. That's not our problem. So it's like, no, we cannot get Florida back to Spain, Cindy. I don't speak Spanish, so I won't be able to succeed very well in.
That's what I was going to say. I was just replying to that.
We got that popped up on our screen over here. Fun.
Well, I don't even know how I did that. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Somehow you did it, but I think that, again, this is. I honestly am starting to believe that this war will not end unless Putin or Zelensky is out of power. Preferably,
I mean,
I have said before,
I think that there's one factor in there, and that it's Putin is very much interested in expansionism, and he's been going after Ukraine since 2012, 2014.
Georgia, also, let's not forget Georgia before that, right?
So, I mean, this is, the biggest criticism, I guess, from the left on Trump in this space has always been that this is not a serious negotiation, that he's very much willing to capitulate to Putin. And then in fact, he always is trying to be Putin's buddy and very excited to meet him. And there was a hell of a lot of criticism to go around when he met him in Alaska, because the prelude to that was him saying that he was going to give resources and access to Alaska, which is just absolutely fucking bonkers. And then to have him roll out the red carpet and then gleefully clap like a fucking chimp, like a fucking seal, is a goddamn embarrassment to anybody, especially anybody who's lived through the Cold War. I mean, frankly, the fact that that is what we are doing with a fucking Russian dictator, like, it's embarrassing.
Putin is not someone who could be trusted, and this, I agree with you. This level of, I wouldn't want to say positive this level of positivity towards him is unnecessary, because again, he is an adversary in our case. Now, at the same time, I agree that we need to try to build up that relationship for peace. But again, he's not being trusted on this, which is why so many years ago, and I still believe this, we should have just assassinated Putin when he was there. We should have just had like a John Wick dude just like snipe him from afar. All right.
Well, in theory, that is not an option that the United States has used in terms of its foreign policy, objectives.
Yeah, I'm just saying, CIA, I know you guys are cleaning yourselves up now, but you don't have a few deep state operatives that you can.
And I think that the
on our soil.
And there are plenty of people who do not appreciate the drone strike that killed Osama bin Laden either, even though that was technically because of the war on terrorism and blah, blah, blah. But
well, Osama was an invasion in Pakistan, and that was the right thing to do, even though everyone was angry about it. Everyone accepted at the end of the day that was the right thing to do.
Be Obama, what are you going to say? Is tough on terrorists. Speaking of something that we should follow up on, any update on the Epstein files?
No, still no update on the Epstein files. Still pissed off
weird.
About this.
So weird.
Still tired of pretending like this is not an issue. We need to, this is again about people who raped children. And at the end of the day, like I said at the previous episode, I don't even care if I get a list of who's on the plane or who's been at the hotel. I actually want to see arrests. I want to see people park-walked and charged with the crime of raping kids. It's not too much to ask not too much for me to ask that our Attorney General does their job and prosecutes child rapists. And I want to
I agree.
What Cindy said. Yeah, I also want to address what Cindy said in terms of the arrest warrant. U.S. is not a signatory
participate in the International Criminal Court.
Well, we don't have to do that, but that's another point too. We could have easily just arrested him and still did that under the ICC if we wanted to anyway. Yeah. That's the reason why Putin hasn't been able to travel, is because he has that arrest warrant out. So we could have just done a complete 180 as he walking in, Trump's clapping, and he goes over to shake his hand. I got you. Put his hands behind his back. You're under arrest. Plot twist. Turns out Trump's the hero the whole time. Never been a Russian agent.
I would retweet a Superman
alternate reality that's going in
of
my
Trump
head
if he did that.
That would have all the Democrats, all of the neoconservative Democrats who hated him would love him again.
Such a tightrope. Such a tightrope.
So that's national issues, as always, just dramatic and chaotic, and just brings us all to drink, whether you like him or not.
Well, you want to talk about Florida and redistricting instead?
Might as well talk about Florida and Texas and redistricting with that as well, because I know this is something we have somewhat of a shared belief on when it comes to the issue of gerrymandering. So, yes. What you want to jump us into this, Cindy, or do you want me to?
Right. So let me just catch everybody up as to like what we're talking about. So you might have heard about the Texas Democrats who fled the state of Texas to stop a quorum from being put together in a special session that was called specifically to address the redistricting in Texas. Trump had said, hey, find me 5 more congressional seats. And Governor Abbott said, yes, we can do that. And so they called a special session that was supposed to address both the redistricting maps and some aid to help those that were affected by the July 4th floods. Yeah. So the Democrats left the state so that they couldn't have this quorum. And the session, I believe, ended on Friday, because they can only have special sessions for 30 days. That's how their state constitution works. And there was this big bluster back and forth as to where they were going to go, or if they're going to be in California or Illinois with Pritzker or Gavin Newsom. It kind of brings us the new Gavin Newsom era, what we can talk about in a little bit. But then that ended up just kind of fizzling out from what I understand. So the session closed and they'll have to call another session. Eventually, I do believe that the maps will pass or have passed. I know that the Texas Senate did pass them, but that there's kind of just like no way out except for, they made this big stand, but eventually they're going to go back and have the quorum and the maps are going to pass. So in Florida, the Senate or the House Speaker, Daniel Perez, the Republican in charge of the House, has put together a special committee that is going to be looking at the redistricting in the state of Florida. And they are going to, from what I understand, put it on not in a special session, but as part of the agenda for the regular session, which will start in January, I believe, because this is an election year coming up.
Okay. So there's a few things on this. I think there's 2 aspects of the story that need to be addressed. One is the broader gerrymandering aspect, and then also really is the constitutional aspect, because my reading, and I'm trying to pull it up here from
Florida's a little bit different,
is that representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned amongst the several states, blah 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 blah. The actual enumeration, basically. And within
Florida, we have a fair districts amendment that was passed to our state constitution in 2012.
Yeah, that too. But what I'm referring to is the clause in the U.S. Constitution dealing with redistricting. From my reading of the clause, it says here, within 3 years after the first meeting of Congress, and within every subsequent term of 10 years, in such a manner as they shall by law direct. What that says to me is that within that's a term of 10 years. Now, it can be within that 10 years, but I'm not seeing where it can say it can be changed within that 10 years secondary. Now, I may be wrong. I'm not a constitutional scholar, but my reading of that is that midpoint redistricting is not constitutional or not allowed.
Actually, my first response is, wow, that's hella unconstitutional, as is the other component of this, which is Trump trying to redo the census and not count everybody, and including folks who are visiting or otherwise, here, migrants, any of that stuff. And by the way, this goes back in terms of how we set up the census in the Constitution, because remember, this includes the 3/5 compromise, where every enslaved person across the South was counted towards the congressional districts in the South as 3/5 of the person. And those people were not considered to be citizens, right? So we're really going back to some very, very fundamental quandaries from the roots of this country when we're talking about who is counted in the census and who is a citizen. And it's tough and it's horrible, and doing it for political reasons is ridiculous. And I am just and it's wildly unconstitutional.
So again, I also don't think that he's able to do another census as well on the constitutional grounds. What I will say, though, is I think there is a point to be made that at least in terms of political districting, that only citizens should be counted in that. Now, the census is not just used for districting. That's the main thing it's used for. The other aspects is you have an accurate population, so you can know stuff like government resources, programs, if you need stuff for law enforcement or welfare or anything like that, that data is needed. So I would be would like to really see some way to split it, where in terms of districting, we count only the people who are either citizens or legal residents in the area, and then the remaining population for all of the other items and resources that they would need. Sort of a split it in that way, but that can't be discussed. One, that has to be congressional, not presidential. That is the power of Congress, not the executive branch. And two, it is prescribed every 10 years. So I do not see how you can do a mid-decade census, even if you wanted to. And again, I agree with sort of where he's getting at, but again, I don't see constitutionally where you can have a mid-decade census.
I mean, here's the thing, though, like, and this is why I say that we are in a fascist state, right? We're in a fascist place in this country, and Trump is aspiring to be a fascist dictator, because under normal circumstances, what would happen is there would be constitutional challenges, and we would have trust that our federal judiciary and our Supreme Court would ultimately say, you know, this is unconstitutional. However, we have a conservative supermajority on the Supreme Court, 3 of whom have been appointed by Trump. All 6, I believe, of the conservative justices are Federalist Society folks, which is a whole nother discussion. But they are not likely right now to do anything that is against Trump's will at this point. And
I disagree with that.
I'm not entirely sure. And, you know, listen, even if you just want to go practically on their originalist idea in the Constitution, right? However that is going to be interpreted, right? We cannot guarantee that it's the same way that it has been interpreted in the past. And here's the other part of that. Even if there is a case, and even if there is something that goes all the way to the Supreme Court, there's no guarantee right now that Trump or anybody in his administration is even going to follow it. We've seen this in the Abrego Garcia case, right? And several other instances where people in the Department of Justice have been told directly to ignore judge and court rulings. So we're in an era that none of this shit matters. Like, we don't have those protections necessarily. We don't have the trust. The trust has been eroded. And Trump has unfortunately found out that in a lot of circumstances, there are virtually no consequences for him just doing whatever he wants almost all the time.
This is, though, again, I don't go so far as to use the fascist dog whistle. I do agree with you in the
sense. Who am I dog whistling?
What? Maybe dog whistle is maybe not the right term, but
I'm being very overt about calling him a fascist.
That's a good point. You're not really dog whistling, are you? You're dog. You're like
I'm air horning that shit. He's a fucking fascist.
Yes. Okay, that's a fair point. Not a dog whistle. You are air horning that he is a fascist. I will not go that far in the hyperbole, but. Again, and I think this is not this is something not just with Trump, but in general with any executive authority, whether it's the president or the governor, this excessive overreach of government power and the disrespect of our constitutional and institutional or our constitutional institutions, if you will. That is very important, and that is where, even though we disagree in terms of the hyperbole of it all, I think we can both agree that the president should not be overusing that power in the sense that we don't have these constitutional protections. The president is not supposed to be above the other 2 branches of government. They're supposed to be co-equal branches of government.
Co-equal branches of government.
And the fact is,
the judicial should check them.
And we do have some of those. Even Trump's Supreme Court justices have gone against him from time to time. So I disagree with you that they're going to rubber stamp everything he wants. I think you have people there who are, especially on the conservative side, who are strong constitutionalists. And there are people like John Roberts who are strong institutionalists. So I do not see as hopeless as you do. At the same time, again, this is something that is a very serious issue when it comes to federal executive overreach and executive overreach in general.
I mean, yeah, I'm with you on the executive overreach, but yeah, no, this was actually one of the biggest problems with, Mitch McConnell playing politics and not allowing Obama's pick to come in, and Trump gets 3 Supreme Court picks, because what happens when you don't have at least a balanced ideologically Supreme Court and you have it skewed to one side? you lose trust. People have lost trust in the institution of the Supreme Court because whether or not they're acting in that way, and actually there's a lot of data that shows us that they are acting much more politically ideologically than even they had said that they would in their Supreme Court hearings in the Senate.
As
but
they often do, yeah.
That this has caused people to just not believe in it. And that was one of the reasons why you shouldn't have a disproportionate court, because it screws up the entire checks and balances system, because you don't have any check if the Supreme Court is highly weighted on one side. Okay. This was the whole case for packing the court and making it even and blah, blah, blah. But that didn't happen. So it doesn't fucking matter. But yeah, I agree with you on the executive overreach. It's been a problem. I've been not a fan of it since Bush, since Obama. So this is a problem.
Again, this isn't his, again, like, is it to the extent that Trump is doing it? No, but we've had these executive overreaches under Bush and Obama. We've talked about it under DeSantis as well. You know, this is again, the executive's authority needs above even the legislative and judicial authority needs to be constrained, because that is going back to our founding fathers and what we had to deal with an executive tyrant in King George.
Monarch. That's tyranny, right? Yeah, tyranny.
Exactly. That's what we fought against. And so having one person with that supreme level of power, this imperial presidency that really began under Nixon, is a threat to our constitutional republic and or our democracy, whichever you want to call it.
Our republic is a democracy, so thank you very much.
To me,
I will say, though, the other reason, aside from the imbalance that has caused like widespread distrust in the court, but the other issue for me is that essentially the worst case scenario that everybody said was going to happen has happened, right? So Roe got turned over, and guess what's coming up? Obergefell, right?
Yes.
Clarence Thomas called out Obergefell, saying that it needed to be turned over, and here we are, right?
So what's her face?
This is no longer oh my gosh, what is going to happen when the worst case scenario happens? The worst case scenario and more has happened under the Trump presidency and in the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I do know that the Kentucky lady who's had 3 divorces
Tim Davis.
I don't know her name. I don't care about her.
She's a looker.
Yeah, good for her. You know, she must have been rejected by so many lesbians, I guess. I don't know.
So, by the way, let me explain just for our audience, for those of you that don't. Obergefell is the case that legalized same-sex marriage at the federal level that went to the Supreme Court, and that there's all these state court and state laws then that recognized marriage equality, essentially. And when the Dobbs versus Jackson, Mississippi ruling came out, Clarence Thomas wrote a supplementary decision,
which basically said we have the ability to review precedents like both same-sex marriage and interracial marriage, ironically.
And interracial is so loving.
Which is weird because he's in an interracial marriage, but I guess he doesn't.
Maybe he's just looking for a way out.
I was going to say clearly, especially knowing his wife. Yeah,
he's just looking for a way out. That's it.
Like, we need to get rid of these interracial marriages. Whoever thought of this was crazy.
Jenny, it's been a good run, but sorry, it's not.
Had a good run, Jenny, but I need a good black woman now. No, look.
Lord help us.
This is definitely it's both of these are something that should be watched and monitored for sure. My view, especially even when I've become baptized as a Christian, I still believe that equal rights matter, and that same-sex individuals deserve at the very least the equal protections regardless of my religious beliefs. There is that question on the meaning and definition of marriage, which has over the years have evolved, but that to me is a separate question. To me, a church or the religious institution, the kingdom of heaven, will use more broadly, not recognizing the marriage in a spiritual sense, should not deny an individual the right to a secular marriage.
The legal protections that come with it.
And that's really what it comes down to. And I think, again, this is on the reverse as well, where churches and religious institutions need to have the rights and protections to follow God's law and not perform those marriages, which right now, of course, they do. And I'm not saying
not in churches. Churches get to decide.
Yeah, churches get to, yeah, so I'm saying it's churches and religious institutions
Right.
can decide whether or not they are going to perform marriages that would be outside of biblical commandments. But outside of churches and religious institutions, you also have court systems that are supposed to remain religiously neutral that can issue these marriage licenses as well. Again, it is to me about equal protection under the law. Even, as someone who has found Christ later in my life, even before that, I was, of course, a big supporter of marriage equality. But even after really finding my faith and understanding God's position on homosexuality, I still believe we have constitutional protections for everyone. And that includes for people we may disagree with or people whose lifestyle or religious views may come off as sin. We have these equal protections for a reason.
Separation of church and state.
Yep.
Yeah, right. So lots of great stuff going on, huh? Anything else you want to touch on, Sean?
There is one more thing I want to discuss before we go. I have an exciting announcement for everyone here. If anyone has not seen on my social media page, but let's just say Cindy Banyai is not the only host on the show running for office anymore. A few days ago, I have officially filed to run for Cape Coral City Council. So I will be running in District 1 as a candidate. It is a nonpartisan race, which is why you don't see my party affiliation on the page, but everyone knows what party affiliation I'm on. Let's be honest. I literally am a co-host of a show called A Democrat and a Republican Walk Into a Bar, where my co-host is.
You can put Republican on the bottom.
Thank you, Cindy. I know you're not a big fan of me,
it's a nonpartisan race, but you can have any party affiliation you want. It just means that you say that you're nonpartisan and that there's nothing on the ballot.
And it's great because, again, I can reach out to everyone, and I want to reach out and represent everyone. The whole reason I'm doing this, and we've talked about it so many times on the show, the city council is not listening to the people of Cape Coral, and I am just tired of complaining about it. We need someone in there who is committed to that. And with my professional experience, I work in customer service. I'm a call center guy. My job is having people yell at me all day. What does the city council have to deal with?
Yeah, sounds like you're pretty well suited for the Cape Coral.
I'm pretty well suited for people yelling at me for like an hour at a time.
Because from what I understand, people yell at them a lot.
Yes, very much so. And you know what I'm supposed to do as a customer service agent is solve their problems. If I did the things that the city council does to the residents, I'd be out of a job. So I want to bring, we got a lot of people who have business experience. My two opponents, one of them's a realtor, and then one of them is, I think, in fintech. Is Monica in fintech or something from what I'm reading from her bio?
Yeah, she's got a background in
some
IT.
sort of technology, but both of them are, I would say business leaders in our community, which there's nothing wrong with. But again, I'm coming from an entirely different background than most people who run for office. I'm a guy who works a 9-to-5 job, struggling to make ends meet, living paycheck to paycheck. That's what a lot of families here in Cape Coral are living with. I'm not, financially well off or well-to-do, and this is the type of people who we need in public office who understand the struggles that the people in the community are facing, regardless of, party affiliation or ideology. I know that, the Democrats tend to be the party that tries to emphasize these issues of affordability and the working class. But I think that, again, someone with my background with a conservative ideology, but this sort of background of a working class individual struggling, not necessarily struggling to make ends meet, but, living paycheck to paycheck, just like everyone else is, I think is important that their voice is on the city council. So I really hope, especially if you're watching the show and you're a member of the working class, that you consider running, especially for local office. A lot easier than even like a state rep seat. Is a much more difficult race with local offices because they're nonpartisan. Meant most of the time, you don't have to focus on one party or the other. You can try to build a base and a broad coalition, which is, again, what I love about getting to do this show is I might not get all the Democratic votes, but I might get some Democrats who may be like, this guy I can get behind, and maybe more in the general, because I know I have someone who is a registered Democrat running in my primary, so I might not get them in the primary. But if once she's out of the race, I'm happy that I can talk to all these Democrats who may not like me 100%, but at least know that I'm someone who is hopefully you think of me as reasonable and kind and someone who is approachable and would listen to you and not just yell at you or talk down to you. That's the whole point of this podcast. We obviously disagree on some fundamental issues, as you saw here today. And I'm sure, Cindy's rolling her eyes. I can't believe he doesn't see all the fascism that Trump is doing. All right. And that's fine. And I'm rolling my eyes. Oh, I can't believe she's over here saying we're going to become a Nazi dictatorship. We can do that, but we respect each other well enough that we're willing to have these conversations. And talk
and it's also about talking about these different issues and seeing the different sides and even, poking a little bit of fun at the things that we do.
Can have fun with, we can have fun with it too. And there's areas where, even though we may not agree on the extremes, that we agree on the fundamental principles in terms of especially government overreach. I think that's where the core of your fascism concern is. It's not about fascism or not. It's about, again, how much power the government has over our lives, which is a very Republican concern. It's a concern that we used to be very used to being the key word. Yes. Something that I definitely will be pushing, and especially on the city government. I mean, thankfully, city council does not have a lot of dictatorial powers. But again, you want to make sure that our city is not overreaching either. We're having this right now with our city attorney overreaching with the boathouse and trying to force them into a renegotiation. And that's a entirely different conversation. But I'm really excited to be doing this. I have gotten so much positive feedback with this announcement, and I'm just so thankful and feeling very blessed, and really looking forward to, as Trump says, fight for the people of Cape Coral.
Fight. I like that. Good luck. Thank you for running.
No one shoot me though. My ears are very nice and I would like to keep them intact.
I was going to say, must be nice to get positive feedback when you tell people that you're running, because when I told everybody they're running, they're like, fuck, again?
See,
and I'm like,
I haven't run 3 times already.
That's right. Some people think I'm elected already. Looking at you, Big Mama. Give me a call. I'm happy to let you know what's going on.
I will say this. I told Big Mama that if I would be more than happy to try to get you on the show, and he said no. I was like, no. But then I told him, like, you need to watch our podcast then, because you're going to get a lot of content. And here's the thing, and this is where I don't want to say I'll applaud you for it, but I think you deserve some recognition for, is you've really become the face of the Democratic Party down here. No one knows who the chair or the only elected countywide, not really countywide, or Democratic official in the county is Debbie Jordan. And no one probably even knows that she's a Democrat sometimes. But you are
That's also a nonpartisan race, right?
That's also a nonpartisan race, which they try to make partisan, and which I'm very happy to say that we didn't successfully pass. Let's actually, you know what? Before we end, we might as well talk about the charter, the new amendment for the single-member districts. I know you're a big supporter of that. I am not. I was shocked that the governor signed that, but okay. So you're, of course, supportive of that.
Listen, Ron DeSantis has been right a couple of times. So he's right on this, and he was right on that decision to allow any size wine bottle be sold in the state of Florida. So now you can get the one that's like 6 feet tall. I forget what they call them. But that was a good decision by Ron DeSantis as well.
Yeah, I'm sure you Democrats have been buying a bunch of those over the past few years. That's going to be a rising industry. Time to invest in wineries for sure.
Yes. So that'll be interesting. Let's dive into that issue again. I think we've talked about this in the past, but that'll be coming up on our November ballot in 2026.
Yep. So I know, look, I understand the argument, and I used to be very much in support of it, where, you want the person in your district to represent you. I get that. I understand that. For me personally, and I've definitely noticed this too with my run for city council, because they sometimes talk about single member districts for city of Cape Coral too. But my view is again,
they're not single member districts for city of Cape Coral?
Nope.
It's all at large?
It's all at large. I have to campaign. Yeah. No, you I think, all the other.
Fort Myers is single member districts.
Fort Myers is single member, and I'm pretty sure Bonita or Estero, one of the two.
Well, Bonita is, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Estero is too, but I'm not 100% sure.
County is not. School board is.
Yeah.
But there's also at-large districts in Lee School.
Yes. There's 2 at-large at the Lee School. So my view is again, we'll take my city, for example. Because I'm running at large, even though I'm in District 1, I'm running at large. And because I'm running at large, I have to represent the whole city. I have to represent the interests of the people in my district, southeast Cape Coral. Messing up my directions for a minute. I have to represent the people in the north and people in the southwest and people in the middle. I have to represent everyone. And in the same way with the county commission, I have power as a voter over 5 county commissioners. I choose all 5 of them. If I have a problem, I can go to Kevin, who's my current county commissioner, but I can also go to David Mollica or Cecil Pendergrass or
and they will all give 0 fucks equally because you are 1 in a million votes.
See, that is
so that's the difference. That's the argument. The counter argument is that if it's a smaller part of it, and that your vote matters more as an individual, and then your person who has to live in your district is then more responsive to you in your district. There's also a racial, an ethnic, and economic component to it in terms of representation. Like what happens in Fort or Lee County is that it's the biggest. The person who can raise the most money and get the developers behind them win, as opposed to the person who's most representative of the district that they're from.
Yeah, you get a lot of those arguments as well, where people are like, "Oh, it's so expensive to run for county commission," which it is. It 100% is. It's definitely for sure.
It's a bigger numeric space than Congress.
For sure. It's harder to run for a county commission seat for that reason. But at the same time, I don't think that single member districts is actually going to solve the problem of special interest money. I actually think it's going to make it easier for special interest people to buy a district, because now they basically can do more with less. They're spending all this money that they have to spend on, and they just have to spend it over a much.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the Lehigh with District 5 though, because
look, here's my deal, and look, I will be frank. I didn't want it passed because my belief is if it goes through, it's going to be approved. I think you easily have the 40% of Democrats who are going to support it, and about 10% of Republicans who would support it. And this is not something, from my understanding, that needs a 60% majority. It only needs a simple. Am I?
I'm not actually sure. I'd have to look at it because it's a slightly different.
Because the school board was 50% plus 1.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure with municipal, it's a simple majority. So it can easily pass a simple majority, plain and simple. And with
by the way, this initiative had been led by Republicans, which is
and a lot of Republican, it should also be clear that the Republican Party of Lee County did oppose it publicly. So the Republican Party of Lee County did oppose it, but you're right. You had Republican Matt Caldwell spearheading it, and Republican state reps and state senators, including friends of mine, like Mike Gianlombardo and Jonathan Martin, who spearheaded it. I give them a mulligan for that. It's one of the few things.
I mean, for me, I'm like, what's the catch?
Well, I will tell you the actual catch that many Republicans think it is. They think that there is a particular consultant that would make a lot of money and make his work a lot easier if he can run his candidates in single member districts.
Like a particular consultant whose first name starts with T and last name starts with M?
It's very possible. Look, I'm not trying to call anyone out. This particular person is not one, we have a good relationship, but also I really don't want to.
I'll call out Terry Miller. I don't give a shit.
You go ahead. You go ahead. Look, I think it's funny because I was actually talking to Jonathan a few days ago at the event that I was at. One of my first campaign events was at the Gulf Coast Young Republicans, and I was talking to Jonathan about that. And one of the things I've said many times, and I said it again to him, is like, yeah, for an establishment Republicans, you're a very conservative establishment. And that's the whole point, is like people can really, we can criticize this particular consultant's tactics. I think there's a level of aggression that is too much and could be deemed as unethical, but it's legal, and he does what he can in order to get his candidates elected, which is why 90% of the time he's successful. The only times he's ever failed is congressional races, and the one time Debbie Jordan, a Democrat, beat his Republican opponent, which is something I very occasionally like to bring up, that one of his only local races he ever lost to was to a Democrat. Congressional and gubernatorial, he did a congressional and a statewide race, and all of those lost. So anything higher than like state rep and state senator, he's never been able to break through. He's trying to now with Jim Schwartzel, who's the guy who owns 92.5 Fox News. So we'll see where that goes. Maybe third time's the charm for him, but you have everyone and their mother running for Congress in that race. And that has caused me to start drinking. Let me just say that is not a race I am looking forward to.
Hey, and here's the thing. I really hope that they redistrict and you can take Debbie Wasserman Schultz's seat. I'm okay with that. But let's go ahead and make everybody's Republican district just a little more winnable. I would love to see that shit fly back in their face. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's the other part of it. If they end up redistricting and they end up just putting a bunch of blue areas into red districts, you're right. That could backfire on us and lead to a situation where a Democrat gets elected to Congress in what would be a traditional.
Nah, probably not. But go for Debbie's district.
Please, yeah, no. One thing I think that you and I can really both agree on is how bad Debbie Wasserman Schultz is as a congresswoman. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you how bad Debbie Wasserman Schultz is. I've been very public about this, okay? Debbie Wasserman Schultz is so bad that when I was living in Broward in 2020, I switched to the Democratic Party just to vote for her opponent, because I believed then and I believe now that it was my patriotic duty to do whatever it takes to get Debbie Wasserman Schultz out of office. And I came back to Lee County and I couldn't be in the REC for a year because I did my patriotic duty to try to defeat Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I stand by that decision. And actually, the person who ran against her is a mutual friend of ours, Jen Perelman. We disagree on so much, especially now with her position on Israel and Palestine. But I still stand by that vote, despite my strong philosophical disagreements with Jen. I think that Debbie needs to go. She is one of the worst most corrupt Congress people next to Nancy Pelosi out there. And it's I was willing to make the sacrifice of being a Democrat for a total of a few months just to vote against her in the primary. I made that sacrifice for my district and for America.
For America. All right. On that note,
and with
let's end this show for today. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here. This has been a Democrat and a Republican Walk into a Bar, the live online version. I'm your Democratic host, Dr. Cindy Banyai.
I am your Republican host, John Hartman.
Thank you so much for listening. And if you're listening to us on anything other than the Big Mouth Media website on Apple or Spotify, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel there and like and rate this episode. Leave us a comment. That will help us reach more listeners. If you're interested in helping independent media, helping us to keep the proverbial lights on, please go ahead and check us out on our website, bigmouthmediafl.com. Especially head over to that plans and pricing page, and then you will have full access to all of our video collection, as well as directly emailed episodes and articles to your inbox. Little as $4.99 a month, $49.99 for the year, and you get to support independent media. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.